Unfortunately, there's some bad news for Xbox fans. Unfortunately, not all things are rosy in the world of supply and demand. Now, late last year, Microsoft said, hey, we don't think that the Xbox supply constraint is going to ease up until sometime in 2021, early 2021 to be specific, and that was late last year. And then earlier this year, Microsoft said, hey, we actually think potentially by the end of June, sometime around there, the Xbox supply the constraint will be easing up and things should be good. And as it is the last day of June, I have followed up with Microsoft to inquire about the supply and demand of Xbox because, let's be honest, you still really can't find them. I went and poked around on a couple different inventory sites, and the only place really that you can find a Series X or S, unless you get lucky, is either on eBay or Craigslist, and those prices are still relatively high for what they're actually selling. You're going to be paying anywhere from about $50 in the low case up to a couple $100 extra just to get your hands on the console. Now, it's not like devices aren't coming out. I try to tweet out on my Twitter account at BDSams when I get word that there is going to be supply landing in either Walmart, Best Buy, or GameStop, or anywhere in between. But the truth is that those consoles, they're selling out quick. And so Phil Spencer actually did a podcast earlier this week on IGN. And, well, call me up, Phil. We should do a chat too. Beside the point, he was actually inquired about the chip shortage, and he used a bunch of different terms to describe it, but he said more specifically, the chip shortage will be with us for a while. Now, he wouldn't give an actual pinpoint date, most likely because Microsoft is still trying to get all the resources together. He actually went on to say that it's not just chip shortages anymore. Things like Ethernet ports and other parts of the assembly process are just in short supply. I want to make it clear that this is not just a Microsoft issue. Sony has already said the PlayStation 5 will be in short supply into 2022, and they're not exactly sure when that will ease up. But Phil Spencer did go on to say that they are seeing demand like they've never seen before, and that they've actually placed huge orders for more consoles to get them onto shore and hopefully selling them. But just because you place an order doesn't mean the supplies actually exist. There is just a very tight constraint on chip supply and basically the other components that allow Microsoft to build consoles. And this is impacting PC manufacturers. This is impacting the entire supply chain. Phil actually joked, he said, when we were building these things out, who would have thought supply chain logistics would be the hardest part of the process? Now, you might take that with a grain of salt because Microsoft's relatively good at supply chain at this point. They've built many consoles, but for somebody new to the industry, supply chain logistics can be a nightmare, as we are learning here. But again, it's not constrained just to Microsoft. There is some good news-ish on the horizon. Earlier this week, Microsoft did make its xCloud or cloud gaming services available everywhere. So if you're really dying to play some Xbox content, you can go to xbox.com/play. And then as long as you're paying the $15 a month for Game Pass Ultimate, you will be able to play that stuff. But even Phil admits, he's like, hey, it's not as good as the console. The console will always be the premier place to play. Now, going a step further, I actually reached out to Microsoft because in previous timelines, they had given us rough guidance and saying like, hey, this is when we think. And now Microsoft did not provide a definitive timeline, but they did provide the following statement to me for this investigation, if you will. But either way, they said, with the global chip shortage across several industries, we're working as fast as possible with our manufacturing and retail partners to expedite production and shipping to keep up with the unprecedented demand for our new Xbox consoles, attributed to a Microsoft spokesperson. But again, they're not going to give us definitive timelines for when they think things are going to return to normal. Honestly, I honestly wonder if Microsoft actually knows, because yes, they placed order, but as Phil Spencer noted in his interview, there's a lengthy lead time between when you place an order for a physical good like a console from when it actually shows up in the store shelves. You got to make the parts, then the parts got to be assembled, then they got to be put on a boat, then they got to be shipped to wherever they are going, then they got to through customs, then they got to go through shipping, then they got to get to the store shelves, and then they have to alert you that they're on the store shelves so that you can go buy them. It is a lengthy process and it is not easy, and it is very clear that this is holding back probably a sizable chunk of the sales. I would love to know how the level of demand is actually for the consoles, because Microsoft made it clear in their official statement, and Phil Spencer doesn't really he follows the PR line. He does, but he's not really one to like sugarcoat things all the time. And he was very candid saying like, look, like this is unprecedented demand. He's like, I'm not trying to walk the PR line, but it really is. And so, brings up like a really interesting question, because if you watch some of my earlier content, I speculated that Microsoft will roughly know when they think they'll have more consoles on the shelves. And based on what we're hearing today, it's not going to be anytime soon, which really throws a wrench potentially into their holiday shopping strategy for the upcoming year. Because again, what is the point of driving retailers to, say, Best Buy or GameStop to go buy a console if you know today that they're not going to be available? And the reason why I keep talking about today is the marketing material is in development as we speak. Those commercials aren't done in a weekend. They take weeks, if not months, to just film and sketch them out. So there's a lot of lead time, not only in the marketing material and the consoles. So Microsoft has to be really tactical here this fall, knowing when these consoles might arrive, because they don't want to miss out on opportunities to say, yeah, hey, we have marketing budget, let's use it for Game Pass Ultimate. Would make more sense, knowing that everybody can go get that today as opposed to their consoles. So it's an interesting time. We're seeing a lot of, I don't want to say bobbing and weaving from the Microsoft side, but they have a tricky challenge ahead. They're also going to be launching some big games that are going to drive even more people to wanting to play them. Let's talk about Halo Infinite, for example. That is a show title for Microsoft, meaning the Halo brand is the Mario to Nintendo, right? It is their crowning jewel of IP, and it'll never go away. And Phil Spencer even said that in his interview, that if Halo Infinite even bombs, Halo will not go away. But he doesn't say the studio may not go away. I mean, I wouldn't think that either. But either way, Halo is here to stay, but it's also launching this fall or winter time. We don't quite know, but I can't imagine it launching after December 21st. Let's just say 11/11 in November. I think that's probably a rough, good estimate for when Halo will arrive. That's going to drive, again, people to go buy consoles that Microsoft is probably sweating bullets right now, knowing whether or not they're going to have ample supply once that title drops. Because people like myself, I guarantee if you go back and watch a video from me last year around the launch of timelines, like, guys, like Halo's not here, there's not a whole bunch of titles, you could probably wait a year, and you're not going to miss out on too much, and you might even save a couple bucks, because historically speaking, Microsoft has sometimes cut costs for the consoles around a year after launch by about $50, somewhere 25 to $50. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I don't think it makes any sense. If Microsoft can't even get them on the shelf, what is the point of cutting price? So they're going to have titles launching. They even did their Game Pass Ultimate deal or announcements where they're saying, hey, we have 6 major titles launching on Game Pass in 6 months. Things like Flight Sim, obviously Halo Infinite is in there, and there's Forza in there, and there's more titles, which is, again, going to drive people to wanting to buy consoles that may or may not be on retail shelves. So it's a really tactical time for Team Xbox, and I empathize that they want to sell more consoles. I mean, obviously they do. That's good for their business, that's good for their marketing objectives, and that's good for them taking back market share, which they have said time and time again. They believe they will take back more console market share than they have in previous years with this generation. So all this being said, if you are looking to buy a next generation console, you've got to be quick. Like, if you see some available, you've got to buy them, because they are coming in quick, and Microsoft is struggling to replenish them. And it's an interesting time in the world of consoles. We have never seen anything quite like this. We've seen chip shortages in the past, but they've never been this widespread across the entire industry. Every time a new console launches in every history, they always sell out, but then it always eases back in 6 to 8 months later for general availability. But we are well beyond that timeline, and the horizon does not look great for being able just to walk in a store to pick up a PlayStation or an Xbox for at least several more months. So if you're looking to buy one and you see one available, you better grab it. Or you could also keep it subscribed here, because I'll keep you updated as these things arrive and mature and get better. So with that being said, hit the subscribe button, because the only BS on this channel is me.